Welcome to Beyond the Credits. I'm Aaron, alongside, as always, Fugi and producer Trey. And on today's show, going to be tackling a few new releases, the new horror film from Curry Barker, Obsession, and also briefly talking about Is God Is, the directorial debut of Alicia Harris. But before we do that, we got some news to dive into, and also going to give our monthly streaming recommendations for the month. Fugi, a couple of big pieces of news over the course of the past couple of weeks, but the big thing that I wanted to talk about is, and I don't know if you're aware that this is going on, but sort of some of this controversy that has drummed up around the Odyssey. Now, a little bit of preface here. I was not really aware that all of this was going on. We are plugged into this movie news. We knew who was getting cast in these roles and who was playing these parts a long, long time ago. But I had a weird experience where probably 3 or 4 people in my life all reached out to me over the course of the past week to get my thoughts on what was going on and the controversy surrounding it. And the first couple of times I was like, I don't even know what you're talking about. I didn't know there was a controversy surrounding the Odyssey. And then by the time the second, third person asked me about it, I was like, all right, I'm gonna have to look this up. But apparently there has been a huge online backlash to Lupita Nyong'o playing Helen of Troy. Apparently Elon Musk has gotten involved with it, and calling it a woke casting and all of this kind of stuff. As we inch closer and closer to the Odyssey, do you care about this at all? Or is this just something that you just completely ignore?
No, I think it's just people wanting to hate. I It's weird because it was all when the trailer came out is when all this controversy started, and it kinda just felt like they were attacking every bits and piece of that trailer,
So were
and it
you aware? I guess, were you even
yes.
aware
Oh,
this is
yes.
happening? Okay, all right.
I
I
am
just must not be
definitely
on that quarter of the internet.
I am definitely on this side of Twitter where every day it's someone attacking the accents in the Odyssey,
Yeah,
that
I
casting.
saw the accents, but the casting thing I hadn't. And I know there was also a whole freak out about Elliot Page being cast in it
Yeah.
and all of that. But and I don't know if maybe Elon making those comments made it just pop up on Fox News, but it just seemed odd that people who are not typically plugged into movie news all seem to have an opinion and care about this. And I don't know if that's good for the Odyssey or if that's bad for the Odyssey as we inch closer to it.
I think it's one of the I mean, he's tackling the Odyssey, which is debatably the second biggest piece of literature ever. So you're gonna have these people that think they know everything about it. So I think this is gonna be a very controversial movie. I think this is proving that it's gonna be. I think it's still gonna be great. I didn't watch the trailer because I don't need to watch it. I'm hooked on the movie already. So I didn't watch that. So I can't really say about these accents. But what baffles me about the trailer is the piece came out about the score, Ludwig Göransson's score.
Yes, yeah, I wanted to talk about that as well.
And Christopher Nolan said, "Don't use an orchestra because they weren't around when this would have happened." Now, if you're doing that, why are we casting that's where it didn't make sense, where it's like he was contradicting himself on certain things.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, because, that was my whole when people were asking me my thoughts on Helen of Troy casting and all this, I'm just like, this is not meant to be a 100% historical representation of what this could have been or what the story was, it's just Christopher Nolan's take on it, and so that means that he's gonna take some creative liberties along the way, but I agree with you that it is a bit odd that, which also, like, what is that score even gonna sound like if it doesn't have instruments in it?
I don't know, but apparently it does play throughout. Did you watch the trailer?
I did, but I can't say that I remember the music
Because some people
particularly.
were saying that it like you can hear bits of pieces of it, and it's gotten really positive feedback. I have no, I'm not scared at all about the score. I think Ludwig is debatably the best we've got today, besides Hans and John Williams. But yeah, it's a
Yeah,
weird controversy.
yeah, I think the thing that frustrated me the most about it is just especially since Lapita is the one that's, like, at the center of this is one of probably the most talented, I don't know, top 25, top 30 actresses alive, and we should be excited that she's gonna take on this part and see what she does with it, and instead, we've just kinda made it into this whole mess of a thing, but I guess it has me wondering, it's really the first time that this thought has entered in my head. Like, is there any way that this movie doesn't work from a financial perspective? Like, or is this gonna create a whole boycott of the movie that you're gonna essentially isolate a bunch of people from not even seeing it? Or do you think this will all blow over by the time the movie comes out and
I
reviews
don't
start raving about it?
yeah, I don't think it's gonna affect it at all. I think these I don't really know why this is a big thing. I think and a lot of people are asking that question is why does everyone care so much about this? It goes back to everything that's getting compared was from the movie Troy. Do you remember that movie with, Brad Pitt?
Yeah.
From what I know, that's not a very critically acclaimed movie, but they're weirdly comparing this to that. But again, I think this will all blow over, right before release, and it's Christopher Nolan. The only thing that scares me is, I mean, Tenet didn't make a lot of money, right? So, like, he has been that was during COVID, but Christopher Nolan has been known like, it has happened before where he hasn't been financially amazing, so it could happen.
Yeah, the other thing too is and I'm, like, doing some real time, fact checking here to make sure that I don't say something that is completely not true, but Helen of Troy is not a real person. This is a mythical character. Um, and, like, there's unless what I'm reading here is not true, there's no evidence that she actually existed and was a real person, so I don't understand why if this is a fictional, if this is a mythical character, why does that mean that we know exactly how that person look? It's kind of the same thing with like the whole Little Mermaid thing a few years ago with that casting, and everybody just kind of loves to get up in arms about something. But if anything, this would be a character that you would like most of the characters in this story. You have creative liberty to be able to do what you want. I don't know if you also saw, but um, Travis Scott is also in The Odyssey, and I sort of loved the and he hasn't given a similar explanation for why Lupita was cast as Helen of Troy, but Christopher Nolan, when asked why he was cast, in The Odyssey, he kinda likened it to how back in the day, The Odyssey was sort of kind of the poetry of the day, and he said rap is sort of kind of the modern equivalent of that in today's world, and so he felt like Travis Scott was kind of a good, stand-in to play a poet in the story, which again is obviously clear. Like Christopher Nolan is thinking through all of these things, and he has a reason for all of these castings. So I wish that people would just kind of trust him and what his vision is for this. And that's
I just
funny for me to say that as somebody that doesn't love Christopher Nolan, but like he knows what he's doing. Let's let him do his job.
that's why, yeah, I don't know why I mean, he's made countless movies, all amazing. Even if you don't love every single one, I don't think there's many that you would say are bad movies, if any.
Yeah.
And I don't a lot of people, that's their favorite directors. I don't know why we're doubting him so much, especially after Oppenheimer. It won countless Academy Awards. Like, he's debatably off the best movie in that perspective. So I think we ride the wave.
Yeah, it kind of maybe gets me honestly, to tell you the truth, it gets me a little bit more excited about the movie because I love a movie when there is some, like, really starch opinions on both sides about something. I think something that frustrated me a little bit about Oppenheimer was that almost everybody walked out of it and was like, "One of the movies of the century," and all that kinda stuff, and I did not feel that way, but made me kinda feel like I was on I sort of don't love whenever there's even with something like One Battle After Another last year, I think everybody can agree that that was one of the greatest things ever, but I would rather a movie like, those are my favorite things or when there are people that are very staunch defenders of, like, "This is not good at all," and then other people that are saying it's a masterpiece, because there's a lot to kind of explore and examine there. So we'll see what happens with, The Odyssey as we get closer and closer to that. Another piece of news that I wanted to discuss, there's been some casting that has started to come out about this movie, but we finally got it not only confirmed, but also some additional stars that have been added to the movie. But Brady Corbet's upcoming movie, The Origin of the World, it's supposed to be a 4-hour X-rated Western that spans 150 years. So that in of itself is going to be quite interesting. For those who don't know, Brady Corbet coming off The Brutalist from 2024. with which won Adrian Brody his second Oscar. The casting news, though, we already knew that Selena Gomez was attached to the project. It was confirmed that she is going to be in the movie. But what was also announced, Fugi, was that Michael Fassbender will be in the movie. And the big one, Kate Blanchett, is going to be in his film, which is, I don't know if you've seen this or not, but incredibly exciting.
I had that was one of my pieces of news was Michael Fassbender. I did not see Kate Blanchett.
Yeah, I think it was literally just this morning that it got announced.
That for this is gonna be a long day at a film festival wherever this plays. That's all I'm saying, because that's gonna be an experience for sure. But I think adding Fassbender to me is one of the I watched Jobs not too long ago, and that
Yeah,
just kinda like foreshows his incredible acting skills.
yeah,
And then Kate Blanchett is amazing as well. So giving two people that are generational, I think a lot of
yeah,
people would say,
yeah.
and Brady, which is known to kinda direct these he did something else, right? Or was
Yeah,
The Brutal
Vox Lux was his, movie before
I
The
guess I haven't seen
Brutalist. It
that.
was and I want to watch that one, but it's sort of I think it's a pop star movie with, Natalie Portman at the center of it, but I always think it's exciting when you have and obviously he's been working with stars for a while, but when you have a director that has a vision and they're first starting out in their career and they don't get as much access to this talent pool, and now, obviously, we knew that would happen after The Brutalist, but sort of the floodgates are open now, and presumably, this cast, top to bottom, will be all of the best actors in Hollywood wanting to get a chance to work with him. I certainly, this movie will have an intermission like The Brutalist did, right?
I would hope so. I mean, this is an hour longer.
Was The Brutalist 3 or 3.5
It
hours?
was 3.5, but I think that was with the
With the
intermission.
intermission, yeah, you're right.
So and I'm sure this is too. So this is probably, what, 4 hours on the dot? So it was around a 10-minute intermission. But do we know a studio that has this?
I don't know if we do. I would imagine that I don't know why A24 wouldn't be, but,
Yeah.
um, especially given everything but I feel like the past yeah, I think his past couple of movies have not had a distributor. They've kind of just got some, production companies together and made the movie, and then they'll take it to festivals, and then they'll wait for someone to acquire it. So, since he works on such a cheap budget, that is possible. That's what happened with The Brutalist, and that's also what happened, with his, wife's film, The Testament of Anne Lee last year. But it wouldn't surprise me if an A24 ends up with this one at the end of the
Yeah.
day. Another piece of news was that, and I don't know too much about the plot. I just thought the idea of these two people working together is exciting. But there's a new film called The Outsider, and it is being described as an intimate biopic of photographer and indigenous rights activist Claudia Andujar. And the thing that I was excited about this one was that it's going to star Inga Ibsdottir Lilius alongside Wagner Mora. And someone on Twitter quote tweeted the news from the story and said, "Love to see when Oscar campaigning networking pans out," or something like that. It's always fun to watch. Both of them obviously were nominated for Oscars last year. They were on sort of that ride together, probably in so many rooms together over award season and at the Critics' Choice Awards and the Golden Globes and the Oscars and Academy Luncheon, like all those sort of functions. To now see them working together, I think is exciting
Yeah, that's definitely some conversations that were happening at
for
those
sure.
awards that obviously something sparked there.
Yeah, and
That sparks my interest.
I think I was kinda concerned that after this amazing turn, in sentimental value that Inga Ipsar Lilius was probably just gonna go back to making, smaller movies that were not kind of in the Hollywood sphere. So, hopefully this is a sign that she will, move in that direction as time goes on. Last thing I wanted to touch on was, Kenneth Lonergan, who a lot of people consider really kind of one of the best filmmakers over the past 25 years. He's only made a couple of movies. In fact, there's only three. So his first film was You Can Count on Me in 2000 with Mark Ruffalo and Laura Linney. Then in right around 2011, directed Margaret, and then his last film was over a decade ago with Manchester by the Sea. He announced that he is working on his fourth film, and the cast is a loaded one. It's called Tomorrow is a Drag. There's no really plot details at this point, but the cast is Aubrey Plaza, Adam Driver, Vanessa Kirby, and Matthew Broderick. I know you are a fan of Manchester by the Sea, Fugi, and it's one that we'll probably be talking about here in a couple weeks when we talk about some Amazon movies. But I don't know how you couldn't get excited with a cast like that.
I actually just rewatched Manchester.
Oh,
Um, so I it's fresh on my mind. So I'm super excited about that. I actually looked at his filmography and thought, like, why isn't this guy directing stuff? But I think it could speak to himself as a person if he does come back, a decade later and throws a heater and it's just amazing. Maybe he was just waiting for the right project. I don't know. That cast is
yeah,
amazing
he's
though.
a playwright too. That's kind of where he's put his, which is why I think that his movies end up being so great because it's just this super rich dialogue. I am gonna be watching Manchester by the Sea over the next couple of weeks. I have not seen it, but the only film I have seen of his, You Can Count on Me, is one of my favorite movies from the 2000s. And would highly recommend it to anybody that's interested in it. And I've heard Margaret is another banger as well. So yeah, we'll see what comes of this one. I'm sure it will be a festival darling in the year that it comes out. But always excited when you can get a talent like him to make a movie and some exciting people around him as well. Before we pivot to talking about some new releases this week, we first wanted to, as we did last month, and we'll do every month going forward, give a shout out of a couple of streaming recommendations that you can watch at home at some point over the next couple of weeks if you want to. We cover a lot of new releases on the show, but also want to use this as a way to just shout out some things that we've seen recently on streaming services that you can watch at home and not go to a theater. Fugi, why don't you get us kicked off with your streaming recommendation for May?
So this kind of fits the episode because we're going to be talking about obsession. So I went with a horror recommendation.
A horror movie coming from you, shocker.
It's one that I watched. I've seen now 4 times, but I rewatched it like 2 months ago. Then for some reason I watched it again this past week. Just had the urge. It's 2016's Hush from Mike Flanagan.
Mm.
Very, I I know I looked one day. It's very underrated in the terms of people that have seen it. I guess it's really not, but it's Mike Flanagan, and basically the story is there's a deaf woman that can't hear, and a stalker comes to her house and is just tormenting her, but she kind of doesn't know because she's deaf, so he can just enter the house at any point. And it's
Yeah.
very that alone got me hooked just from reading that description. It's 82 minutes. Um, One of the few movies that have genuinely like scared me because it just makes you look behind you in a room to make sure there's no one there. It's eerie, uncomfortable, kind of all of that, and very, very easy and short watch.
What streaming services? You said this is on Netflix?
It's on everything. It's on
Oh.
Tubi, Pluto, Plex, Prime, Peacock, AMC Plus. It's kind of everywhere.
Oh, wow.
So a lot of those you can watch for free. You don't even need to pay for it.
And you're a big, I don't think he's come up on the podcast yet, but you're a big Mike Flanagan guy.
I am he's heavily involved in Clayface, which is why I'm super excited about that. But yeah, Mike Flanagan he's one of the horror guys that I don't think get talked about enough.
And
But
he's currently shooting the Exorcist sort of reboot, I guess is the way to best describe that with Scarlett Johansson. Is
I
that
guess
right?
technically it's a reboot of a reboot because the reboot was Exorcist Believer, but now they're
Oh,
doing
right.
another one. But this one I think has a lot of I think they saw how bad Exorcist Believer was, and they were like, "We gotta get another one out there to bury that one a little bit." But he's gonna kill that, especially with Scarlett Johansson.
Where do you stand on the original Exorcist? Have you seen it? Not seen it?
It's amazing. Yeah.
I think this reboot with Scarlett Johansson is going to be what gets me to watch the original Exorcist,
I think you
which
should
is
definitely
something
watch the original.
I think given that it was made when it was, I think it maybe doesn't concern me as much as some modern horror movies do, as far as how I mean, I'm sure it's gonna be terrifying, and I'm sure I'll report back on it whenever that day comes, but, have been putting that one off as long as possible. Trey, you got a streaming recommendation for us?
Yeah, so my streaming recommendation is actually going to be the 1941 movie Citizen Kane, which I
Oh!
watched a couple of days ago, and it's been on my watch list for so long. Because obviously, when people talk about the best movies of all time or the most iconic movies of all time, this is one of the ones that always comes up. And it's by Orson Welles. It's his first ever movie, Orson Welles. And honestly, the filmography and the story, it's kind of unbelievable how good this movie looks. Considering, I mean, obviously it's 1941, which I
Yeah.
mean, you just say that and it's kind of even hard to believe. Like there are a lot of movies from the 70s and 80s that feel less modern than this did. Um, Essentially, it's a story about how money and power can corrupt people who even originally have good intentions going into whatever. In this guy's case, he runs a newspaper and then he slowly gains power and absurd amounts of money through that, and he kind of descends into a world of greed, which typically you see when people get power and money like that. But yeah, like I said, if you're the person that's turned off by like super old movies like this, I would really encourage you to still give it a chance because I mean it is in black and white, but like I said, the filmography feels so modern. Like the camera, I was honestly blown away. Like um I know we've kind of talked offline about how I'm not a huge fan of like Rear Window and movies like that. This
Yeah.
this felt more modern than Rear Window to me. And it's kind of unbelievable that this one was made like 20 years earlier. So yeah,
You can revoke my cinephile card however you want to. I have not. This is one of my biggest blind spots in movie history. I have not seen Citizen Kane, but Fugi, I know you have. You actually watched it, I think, last year for the first time, right?
Yeah, I saw it in theaters, which is kind of cool to see one of those. I mean, 1941 to see that in theaters is pretty crazy. I think for me, it's one of those movies that is just, I mean, everyone has heard of Citizen Kane. Like it's kind of like it's cinema. Like that's kind of like that Casablanca. You just think of that when you think of cinema. That's what you think of. So I don't think it hit me as much as it should have on first watch. But as it ended, it was kind of like, okay, I need to rewatch this now. I think I just needed to maybe lower my expectations a little bit. Still amazing. I think I gave it a 3.5, but
Three and a half.
yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna give it a 4.5 because if I didn't love it, it will
I
definitely
give it a
go up
four
to
and a
a
half
4.
for the record.
All right, I
But
think I'm gonna have to watch this now.
it does sound like you had a better experience than me, Trey. But I can definitely appreciate why it's so renowned and amazing.
Yeah, there's a couple of really famous scenes and shots in it that were like the first time that this camera maneuver or this type of like lighting was ever used in a movie, and yeah, it just feels so modern that way. Also, something I learned because I did a lot of reading and research about this after the movie finished, but this so previously Orson Welles had mainly done radio dramas, and this was his first ever movie. And almost all of the actors in this movie had never been in movies before. They were actors that he worked with in radio dramas and in a few stage plays.
Wow.
So yeah, basically the entire cast. This was their first time on screen, which makes it even more insane how well this looks and how good all the acting is. So yeah,
Wow. Yeah, that's
highly
incredible.
recommend it.
I was going to try to figure out which route I was going to take with this. But Trey, you talking about an old movie that you watched for the first time recently inspired my streaming recommendation is going to be the Red Shoes from 1948. This is a film directed by Michael Powell and Emmerich Pressburger. The duo, often kind of referred to as Powell and Pressburger, they directed a whole kind of litany really of movies over the 40s, 50s, 60s. But The Red Shoes is from 1948, and it sort of gave me the exact same feeling that you're explaining, Trey, of like how on earth was this done in the 1940s? It's a kind of movie that if it came out today, everyone would kind of be marveled at what is done technologically in it and how it looks. And so for them to accomplish this in the 40s is quite impressive. You can stream it on HBO Max, and the movie is actually based on the short story by Hans Christian Andersen called The Red Shoes. But the movie is sort of about a young ballet dancer that's torn between the guy that she loves and her pursuit of becoming sort of one of the greatest ballerinas of all time, to put it in modern terms. And I sometimes I'm nervous to watch these old movies that are so acclaimed because you are afraid that you'll kind of have a similar reaction to what Fugi was just saying about Citizen Kane and you'll not really understand it. But then there are some of these movies, and The Red Shoes was one of those for me where almost immediately you get it. And not only get it from the sense that, wow, this is one of the most impressive things I've ever seen. This is one of the greatest movies ever made, but you also understand its place in film history, and there were probably immediately like 5 movies that came to my mind of movies that The Red Shoes has gone on to influence, and movies that I love, like movies like, Black Swan, movies like Whiplash, sort of, that like, who is the person behind the artist and what is the force that's driving them? It's just really cool to look back over film history and just watch how one generation of filmmakers influence the next generation who influence the next generation. And film really is this medium that sort of builds on itself in that way. There's a sequence, the titular sequence. There's a sequence where the Red Shoes Ballet is performed, and it's sort of a 15 to 20-minute sequence where it becomes sort of very fantastical, and it's one of the most mesmerizing sequences I've ever seen in a movie ever. So if anyone loves sort of that classic Hollywood feel of a movie, and enjoys that kind of story, would highly recommend that they check this one out. It knocked my socks off.
I feel like it's always cool because obviously nowadays most of these movies getting made were inspired by an older movie. But that's like I would definitely say about Citizen Kane as well. The stories back then are unmatched. Like they're all, I mean, they're all original because they really weren't based off of many things. So it's always cool to see like what you were saying with like Black Swan and Whiplash to see what it originated from or took inspiration from, to say the least.
Yeah, and it also gives you just perspective too of when a movie like that will come out, and maybe people like us who are of a younger generation will see a story like that for the first time, and we'll be completely blown away by it, and we'll think it's one of the greatest things that we've ever seen. And then there's a whole generation of people that are like, well, it's really just kind of iterating on this movie that did it the first time, and it's just really to me one of the fun things about kind of exploring film history because it not only helps you see where things originated from, but it also helps you see how we got to where we are today, and sort of kind of who influenced who and all of that in that way. Um, Trey, remind me where Citizen Kane was on streaming.
So I may have cheated just slightly. I believe it's not actually streaming anywhere. You have to rent it. So maybe that's slightly bending the rules of our game here. I mean, it is streaming, but after you rent it, it will be streaming for you. So
I'll allow it this time. Let's
all right,
pay closer attention to the rules of the game next time. But
all right.
so we got pretty much everywhere available from Fugi. Mine was on HBO Max, Red Shoes, and then Citizen Kane. You can rent. What's a rental price for Citizen Kane these days, Trey?
$3.99 is what it says, and
Oh,
that's everywhere: Amazon, Apple TV, YouTube.
it's
So
always interesting to me these movies that are some are like $2.99, some are $3.99. Obviously, the new ones are going to be more than that, but I don't know if you all find yourself in this situation, but sometimes I find myself in this situation where I'm like, am I going to buy it or am I just going to rent it? Like if a movie is like $5 to rent, but it's gonna be like $6.99 to buy, I'm like trying to run the math before I watch it of like, is this gonna be something that I watch again? And there have been multiple times where I've made a very poor choice in that regard. And there have been other times when it's paid off. So I remember, I think Boogie Nights was one that was like, it was either rent it for $3 or buy it for $5, and I was like, "Oh, I'll just buy it for $5," and that has more than paid off over the long run. But some of the newer movies where it's like $20 to rent or $25 to buy, and you're like, I might as well just buy it for $25," and then you watch it and you know you're never going to see it again. Not a great place to be.
Have you had any experiences where you've rented and then you wish you would have bought it right after?
Yeah, yeah, a couple. I don't know that there are any that come to mind immediately. It's mainly more the ones that you buy and then you're like, I should have just rented this. I'm never gonna watch it again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
All right. So before we get into main topic of discussion, which is going to be obsession, I did want to briefly just touch on one of the other new releases this week. Trey and I had a chance to see this one. It's called "Is God Is," and as I alluded to earlier, it is directed by Alicia Harris. This movie is based on a stage play, I believe, of the same name, and has been adapted into a feature length film. Um, the plot is essentially that there's sort of two young girls, and them and their mother were burned alive by their father earlier in their lives. And they all survive, but they have sort of scars and kind of reminders of what happened to them. They get summoned to their mother pretty early in the film, so none of this is a spoiler. And she essentially asks them to enact revenge on their father, and so it sort of becomes a road trip, sort of revenge thriller, of them trying to track down their father. Trey, I know had a chance to see this one. I don't think you're as high on it as I am, but what'd you think of As God Is?
I mean, I thought it was good. I didn't know this was Alicia Harris's directorial debut, I guess. One vibe that I kind of got from the trailer, like a few weeks ago before the movie even came out, was it kind of the trailer had like a Tarantino kind
Yep.
of vibe or like pace to it.
Yeah.
And so I didn't really know going in if that was just kind of the trailer and how they were doing that, or if that was going to be kind of the vibe of the movie. Yeah, the vibe. I mean, yeah, it kinda had, like, the Quentin Tarantino pace. There were some, like, split screen shots that I feel like Tarantino uses quite a bit in his movies. So, yeah, it kind of had that vibe to it, which, I mean, if that's this director's style going forward, that's definitely gonna be interesting to see if she does more movies like that.
Yeah,
But,
you could definitely feel the influences on this one.
yeah.
I felt like not only Tarantino, but a lot of kind of some of that action thriller revenge movie from 70s and 80s. You can feel that. I also felt a little bit of Jordan Peele as well. There's a sequence towards the beginning of the film where the mother character played by Vivica A. Fox is sort of recounting to her kids what happened the day that their father burned them alive. And it immediately cuts to, it's not black and white, but it's almost more of a gray. But in the gray, there's you can see like kind of the color of the TV in the background and the way that it's
Mm.
shot sort of low on the floor. It really reminded me of the sequence in Nope where they flash back to when the monkey sort of enacts chaos. I don't know if you've seen Nope or not,
Oh.
Trey.
Yeah, I remember that, yeah.
But it just gave me the same sort of feel to this. But I love the style that she infused in it. It's the kind of movie that you feel like no one else could have made a movie like that, and it's very singularly hers, which is always exciting to me.
Yeah, I think I liked the story mainly. I didn't really feel a connection to any of the characters. I saw a couple people saying online, and I think I kind of agree that you were kind of told how to um you were kind of told how to like vision the characters and like what all their traits were going to be. Like, oh, this one is more shy and she is more like aggressive and stands up for herself. And you were kind of told that more than like shown it
Mhm.
over the course of the movie, I guess.
Yeah, that's fair.
Um, so yeah, and I don't know, the characters, I don't know if they did it for me, but, yeah, I mean, the story was pretty good. There were a lot of, like, you know, violent, brutal moments, which are kind of Tarantino-esque, and I really liked all of those, and the story, like I said, was pretty good. I don't know what it was. It's just the ending kind of felt a little no spoilers, but kind of felt a little flat to me. I don't know. How'd you feel about? I mean, we don't have to go into spoilers, but like kind of the ending and kind of even the last like 30 minutes or whatever.
Yeah, I had a little bit of hesitation going into it because I did hear everybody kind of describing it as a Tarantino-esque kind of movie, and I have not seen all of his filmography, but historically, that's just not really kind of the vibe that I like in a movie. But I felt like this one had a little bit more heart than I was expecting to it. I really liked the first man, probably hour. Like the whole thing was quite hilarious at times too. Like that sequence where they go to the church and there's the female pastor up there giving a sermon, and there's people that are like being possessed by the devil and they're shouting things, and um there was some really funny sequences in that to me. I think I hear you on the ending. I think that it's probably a tough movie to tie a bow around no matter what. I think my problem with it was more just that you could feel the fact that this was her directorial debut a lot of times, which I know most people are not gonna knock it out of the park the first time they make a movie. There was some stuff, particularly in like the fight choreography at the end. Again, not getting into spoilers about that, where you could just tell that things were fake and they didn't look real in any regards. And some of the coverage when it was supposed to be this certain actor, but you could clearly tell wasn't an actor and it was just someone being a stand-in for them. Just that kind of stuff that I think as time goes on as a filmmaker, you refine that process, you work that out, and you get to a better place with it. But I left it being excited to see whatever, if she does do another movie, what she does next, because I think there is enough there that would get me excited about what's to come in the future. And I really want to shout out the performances as well, because I mean, Sterling K. Brown, and it makes a very smart choice in the movie to where it does not show his face until way later into the movie, which I was a very effective choice. But then also, just the performances of the young girls, Kara Young and Erica Alexander. I don't think I've ever seen them in anything before. And even if some of the characterizations are a little too on the nose, as you're saying, which I think is totally fair, I think they do a good job of bringing those characters to life, and you kind of know what each one of them is about.
Yeah, I think I agree. I don't know what it is about Sterling K. Brown, but going into it, maybe I just haven't seen enough of his movies. But him as kind of like this evil, father, I for some reason
Yeah.
I couldn't really picture it going in. But yeah, like you said, once he's actually on screen and his face is revealed and all that, I think he does a good job of playing that kind of person, and he's good at kind of like you know because obviously he's gotten this life where he's giving off the vibe that he's not this evil person,
Mhm.
but so you can see that, but then he kind of does a switch also where you can
Yeah.
see the evil in him. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I think
I
he
think he
is
did a
one
good
of
job.
the I think he's one of the best just deliverers of dialogue that we have alive right now, and I feel like you could write a terrible script, but if he was the one that was sort of putting it out into the world, he would make it sound good. So it doesn't surprise me that he was drawn to this script, because this was something that was a play, which I think would have been interesting to see as a play, because you could kind of feel that in moments where it is more stripped down and it doesn't feel as cinematic as maybe the movie does. But sometimes you go into movies like that and you leave and you think, why did they turn this into a movie? Because there isn't any elements that make this feel like a movie. It just feels like it's like chamber piece, like you're in one room the whole time and there's not a lot going on. I didn't really leave feeling that way with this one. In fact, it made me think the opposite. I was like, wait, how was this a play in some regards? Which I felt like was a cool takeaway from it.
Yeah.
So that one is from Amazon MGM, which is kind of on a little bit of a heater right now as a studio. Their past three movies are this one. We talked about the Sheep Detectives last week, and then Project Hail Mary, obviously, a couple weeks removed from that. We'll have a chance to talk about Amazon as a studio more in a few weeks here and kind of talk about their ambitions going forward. Another release that came out this week is called In the Gray. It's a new Guy Ritchie movie. We will cover that on a future episode when we do another version of Watch Skip. But want to pivot now to sort of our main discussion for today, which is a movie that came up pretty early, and I can't even remember who got this one in
Oh,
our.
me.
You got it. Okay, all
Yeah.
right. So this was one that going into our summer movie draft a few weeks ago, we knew just from chatter offline that it was going to be drafted really early. We were all excited about it. It's a sort of young, up and coming director that Trey has had his eye on for quite some time. Our scout over there, scout in the minor leagues.
Yep.
But the film is called Obsession, and the director is Curry Barker. And I'll just start off by reading the premise, and then we can jump into the conversation. After breaking the mysterious one wish willow to win his heart's crush, a hopeless romantic gets exactly what he asked for. However, he soon discovers that some desires come at a dark and sinister price. Fugi, I'll start with you. What did you think of Obsession?
I don't think a minute has passed since I saw this Friday night that I have not stopped thinking about this movie.
Mm,
It kinda I think I said last week that this was kinda like my most anticipated for the rest of the year.
yeah.
There's been so much hype around it. I've listened to countless, interviews with Curry, and he always felt like he knew what he was doing. You know, from his short films he did, I got a chance to watch The Chair or Chair, whatever it was called.
Yeah.
He has a sense for horror. He has a sense for comedy. He has a TikTok page that I don't
His
know if you
his Tik
stumbled across
his
that.
TikToks have started showing up in my feed, and I have not, like, passed one of them without dying laughing.
So I didn't know that was him. I have been watching those TikToks for a while now and
Oh, wow.
never connected that was him. So after I saw the movie, I connected those dots. And I think he has the perfect blend of comedy, gruesome horror, and just like jump scares in a way that we don't see jump scares nowadays. And I know he's talked about this in interviews, and we can dive deeper on this later. But I think moving forward, he's going to be one of the horror guys we talk about. I know he has a new one coming out. I think it's already in production. When we hear his name in 5 years, I think we're going to think he's a Jordan Peele, Robert Eggers, these type of horror directors.
I gotta agree completely with you. I was blown away by this. You know, we just talked about first time feature from a filmmaker and how sometimes that can just you can just feel more restraints on it. And this one, I don't know if part of it is just because he's been in the game so long, because he was making YouTube shorts, and you alluded to the chair earlier. That was sort of really his kind of breakthrough horror short film. He also had one called Milk and Cereal, which I have not got a chance to watch. Have either of you watched that one?
I have not.
I may have watched it a long time ago, but I've heard people referencing it, and I can't remember really anything about it. So I may have
Okay.
to rewatch it.
Yeah, that one's 60 minutes long, so it's getting kinda closer and closer to that, feature length territory. Um, and I don't again, I don't know if it's because yes, this is his first feature movie, but it's really not because he's just been kind of in the YouTube game for so long, but, um he just seems to have an awareness for, like, what makes these kind of movies not good that I don't think I've ever really heard from a young director like this before, and maybe it's just because other directors aren't as candid as he is in interviews, but I would highly recommend anyone listen to, he was on the Big Picture podcast, and he did an interview with Sean Fennessy, and just the way that he acknowledges how so many horror movies these days will like go too deep into backstories and characters will monologue about their grief and like he even said he was like that kind of stuff just makes me roll my eyes if I see it in a movie, and I think that's the way that all of us feel if we would see that kind of stuff in a movie. And so to hear him be this open and now if he can actually do that going forward, that's a whole other question, but to see somebody this young that has this much control over what they want to do and be able to make something of this degree was shocking to me, if I'm being completely honest.
Yeah, I
Yeah, I
also
agree.
think he tackled something different. You know, we talked about, I think it was last week, how a lot of horror movies go after grief and all of that. He tackled something completely different in this movie, like themes and topics that I don't think we've seen in horror very much. And I think I mean, it worked in every way for me.
But even in the way that he does that though, like when you think about and just so everyone knows, we're going to talk just more generally about this for a few more minutes, and then we'll get into more of a spoiler discussion for anyone that hasn't had a chance to see the movie, to be able to pause before that. But like even what he does with this movie, with, and this is not a spoiler to say this because it's very early in the movie, but he so much could have dived deep into the backstory of Bear and why he was the way that he was. And um, he just makes his grief being that like his cat died and that's it. And like he's just a normal person going about his life in the world and didn't feel like there was some sort of trauma that he had to impose on him, which I felt like was a great stroke. The other thing that I think works really well is that there's, and he talked about this on that interview that I alluded to, so it's clear he's aware of this, but does such a great job of not showing you things that are creepy and scary, but not over explaining what they are. Like they're just living in the world. Like even this idea of this one wish willow that he snaps, there's about 150 questions I have about like how that got in the store and how that works the way that it does. And, but he isn't interested in giving you the background on that. And to me, that makes the idea of it operating in this world 1,000 times more scary than it would have been otherwise, because we don't know what the rules of it are, and you're trying to figure that out sort of as the movie goes along.
Yeah, and well, going more into that, I saw some people talking about how this movie needs like a sequel or maybe like a series, a TV show where you see different people like snapping the one witch willow and all that. And I think something like that, yeah, would not work at all because once you kind of get into the semantics and like give the backstory of how this thing works, that's not the interesting part of the movie. The interesting part is the horror. And one thing that he I think he said in that interview that he directed in Day, is that how you pronounce her name? He directed her to do is that so many other horror movies would have turned the girlfriend character into like this haunted demon that was, maybe in Hereditary, it'd be like on the ceiling or something like that. But
Mhm.
she he directed her to just play the character as a obsessed girlfriend, obviously up to, you
Right.
know, 15. But there's not really a moment where you think, oh, she's like possessed by a demon or there's something else like controlling her body. You just get the feeling that has become like obsessed with him to the point where she's doing all these violent, extreme things. And yeah, that was really smart, in my opinion.
Yeah, and you have shouted the name out. I'm surprised it took this long into the discussion to do it, but um, I mean, we're talking a lot about Curry Barker and obviously the vision he brings to this. But holy moly, the star turn by Indy Navarrete in this. I
Yeah.
mean, truly one of the like. I think we're all going to be able to look back at this in 20 years, and I mean, who knows what her career will be from here, but there is no way that she doesn't become something after this. What a wholly unique performance that she brings to the screen here.
I think it's
Yeah,
gonna
she made the movie. I mean, if that would have been a lesser actress, I don't think the movie would have worked at all. The way she was able to just snap between, you know, kind of acting normal girlfriend to freaking out and screaming at him in a split second. And then the times where she turns back into maybe a little bit of a spoiler, so sorry, but turns back into the original Nikki and she's kind of freaking out.
Mhm.
Just the way she's able to like instantaneously switch between those, it was amazing to watch. Go
Yeah, and
ahead, Fuggy.
the way
Oh,
too that he, and then Fugi, I want you to chime in here. The way that it's this perfect to me, this kind of perfect push pull between a great performance and a great director being the one to kind of orchestrate that behind the scenes. Because the way that I've seen a lot of writing about this, and I think it's well to point out, but the way that he lights her throughout the movie and the way that he uses shadows and when he shows certain features of her face versus not showing certain features of her face, he takes what is as you're alluding to, one of the great performances in all of horror movies, and sort of magnifies it up to like the 10 or 11 that it is because of sort of what he's doing around her, which is, I think, in the hands of a lesser director, I think it would have been a great performance, but some of those choices that he's making around that even amp up what she's doing. What do you think of the performance, Fugi?
I was gonna say it feels very similar to the way Tony Collette was received in Hereditary.
Mm,
It's
Yeah.
very generational, and I hope after Weapons last year and Amy Madigan got her nomination, got her win, I
yeah.
hope the Academy falls back into the horror, and I hope that she gets a nomination here because I don't know how we're gonna get 5 more performances better than this. It I mean, it was incredible, and I know I went into it hearing how incredible she was, and somehow it was kinda undermining how great it was. It was every scene, she was just mesmerizing on how I'd seen certain clips of, like, the "I love you so, 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 so much." Like, it's just the way she says that in the movie is like, if I were experiencing that, yeah, it's creepy, but, like, hearing her deliver that kinda scared me. And then there's obviously other scenes where it was just it's generational, and we will hopefully she sticks in the horror genre. That's what I'm gonna say.
Well, I think too, like I would even take it so far to say that, and I've seen some people saying this, I think that she does such a great job of bringing that sort of character to life that I think that some people are probably gonna get PTSD from watching this in a lot of regards. Like, if you have ever lived with somebody that is dealing with that sort of emotional unregularity and, like, just can't control themselves in that way and are almost kind of like, I think a lot of people have been saying, like, bipolar, in a way. I think that it's gonna probably feel a little like people were saying that there should have even been, like, a trigger warning at the beginning of this just because of, like, how spot on she portrays that sort of thing. That it's not too often that you can say that about a performance, which I think is a lot of fun. There's a lot of directions that we could take this conversation, but I think now is probably a fair time to just delineate that we're gonna. I mean, we can go whatever way we want to, but we definitely will be talking about spoilers from here on out. So if you have not seen Obsession, would and you want to, I would highly recommend that you check out the movie before you listen to the rest of this conversation. But I guess kind of talk. You alluded earlier, Fugi, to how this movie kind of hits on some themes maybe that haven't been touched on in ways in previous horror movies, and it isn't just your typical stereotypical like, oh, this person has trauma and all that kind of stuff. Let's unpack that a little bit. Let's go a little bit deeper into to what you were seeing from the themes of this movie.
Well, I think to start, I think what another thing that makes this incredible in my eyes and a form of horror is the fact that the main character is Bear, but the person that gets quote unquote possessed is Nikki, but she's the one that we feel bad for. She's the one that, throughout this whole thing, Bear technically is the villain, if that makes sense. Which is a
But it
very
does
big discourse online right now.
But it does
Well,
it does a very smart thing though in the beginning of the movie where the story starts on him and it centers around him at the beginning to where we are almost supposed to garner up sympathy for him. And you maybe kind of do at the beginning, but to your point, and it's very much why we're in spoiler territory now, like it as you start to go deeper into the movie, you realize that there's no sympathy to be had for him at all. And he's actually not only a bad person, a despicable and evil person.
Yeah, and it's just
yeah,
interesting. Or you're good. Go ahead.
well, I was gonna say there's one very specific moment I'm thinking of where, in my mind at least, he turned into the villain of the story is when Nikki is laying in bed and he's sneaking out, and the real Nikki is, talking, but the possessed Nikki is asleep, and she's saying, kill me,"
Yep.
whatever she's saying, and then he says,
Is it
is
so
it
bad
so
to is it
bad?"
so bad to be with
Yeah,
me or something? Yeah.
yeah, "Is it so bad to be with me?" And in that moment, I mean, before then, you can obviously say he's made some wrong choices, but in that moment, I think he turns into the absolute villain of the story, and it just continues for the rest of the movie.
It's just interesting. I mean, that just doesn't happen in horror. Like
Yeah.
it's kind of like 360 to what every normal horror movie is. He kind of does the opposite here. And it's what I got to talk about with jump scares too. It's just everything you expected kind of different and it works. But back to the like the themes. I just think there's a lot. I mean, there's obviously like what you mentioned with bipolar. There's a lot of toxic relationships, or just like a lot of things that are happening there. And then there's also, I mean, you can think like rape and sexual assault is buried deeper in there. I just think there's a lot of layers to it, and you can go as deep as that if you want, but also it could be shallow if you wanted as well.
Yeah, and I think there's also an element too of I've seen a lot of people talking about this, and it was kind of my first read on the movie, like this sort of idea of like Bear doesn't even really want Nikki for who she is and as a person, like he just kind of wants the idea of her, and he only wants like he wants her to like him in the way that he wants her to like him, and it has nothing to do with her autonomy in the situation. And um he's almost sort of, as it goes on, like he's almost sort of okay with the fact that all this other stuff is going on, but like he's kind of getting what he's getting out of it. And it's not like none of it is about her at all. And I think there's something that does a good job of encapsulating a lot of young people where it's like they love the idea of somebody to be there and love them and care for them and all those things, but they don't actually want to be in a relationship with a real human being.
Yeah, I would agree. I guess that one didn't really cross my mind, but there's so many different things you can pull from it that's what makes a great movie, in my opinion, where there's not like a definite this is what they were going for here.
Yeah. Which is why I don't know how, and I know you alluded to the discourse. I don't really know how people can walk away from this and not think that he is a villain in any way, shape, or form. Because I mean, you were even alluding to the sexual assault stuff, and I think that's very much in the text. Like, I think that's part
Yeah.
of one of the things that you should be examining about can she even be giving consent and those sorts of things that she clearly cannot be. And I think that I think we should unpack and talk about a few of the sequences in particular, but I think that the most horrifying sequence in the movie, maybe not the most scary sequence in the movie, but the most horrifying is when he gets on the phone with the person at the sort of One Wish Willow headquarters or whatever and is talking to them, and you're sort of really starting to understand more of the rules. But when you hear her screaming, when he's like, "Hey, you want to talk to her or whatever," and you just hear her screaming, like to me that is far and away, because that's like one of the first moments when you really for sure know exactly what's actually happening here. There are moments before that where you kind of are thinking that maybe that's where it's going, but that's the one where it's definite of like she is not okay with this, and in fact she's eh, being tortured in a sense. And I just thought it was a very masterful job by Barker and how he put that on screen.
Another minor thing in that scene that kind of goes towards seeing Bear as the villain. I think this was before the other scene I was talking about, but when he's talking to the call center guy, he the call center guy says, "Do you want to cancel your wish?" And Bear says, "No, I just want to adjust it a little bit."
Yeah.
So it it's not like he wants to turn Nikki back to how she was before. He just wants to like change the wish so that she's not as crazy, but she's still in love with him. And that's kind of showing, his he's not, totally thinking of Nikki here. He's kind of thinking of himself and the ramifications. Um, Another part about that scene, I actually thought, you know, this um, this was like one of the first whatever Curry Barker things where he's not starring in it. The person on the phone is Curry Barker, the call center rep,
Oh,
which
really?
I didn't notice at first in the theater, but somebody told me about it later. And then looking at the cast right now, yeah, he's listed as the call center guy. So
That's
it's
pretty
kind of
cool.
fun.
So what's interesting, and he talked about this a little bit in that interview that I was talking about, is I and I know we texted a little bit about it this week, but I watched The Chair and I really liked The Chair. But when I watched The Chair, there was one part in particular that I was like, oh, I kind of wish that he would make a whole movie about that. And it was the part in The Chair where the main character is like laying in bed with his girlfriend and she just like immediately kind of snaps into something completely different. And
That was
it
terrifying.
it was the most terrifying part of the whole short. And I was like, "That's cool. I wish that he would kinda," and that's essentially what he did, and that was also his idea as well after watching his own short of so it's cool to see that play out the way that it did because it's essentially a feature length version of that one moment in the chair.
And I think with that version in the chair that we saw, I think it was amplified in Obsession with the scene where Nikki's like in the corner of the room.
Yes, that
That
was
freaks
another
me out
sequence
so
that's another
much.
sequence that I wanted to talk about because there's so many moments like that in the movie where I don't know how many people were in your all's theater when you saw it, but I was in a pretty full theater, and that was a moment where there's just kind of like this like nervous laughter from everyone in the room as it's happening because you have no idea where it's going. And it does kind of bring back a little bit of the shades of that, Tony Collette on the ceiling in Hereditary, but in a very different way. And the performance there, like all of it, that was before that's what I was alluding to earlier about maybe the most like physically scary scene of the movie before you get to the most terrifying later. Trey, did you like that sequence as well?
Yeah, yeah, that was really good. That was another one of the moments also where um it's not so much what's happening on the screen that's scary, but it's just the anticipation of what might happen. Um,
Mm,
I don't know if this was, I mean, I'm sure it was intentionally mixed this way, but whenever she is screaming at Bear in the movie, it is so deafeningly loud that I'm just thinking in my head, don't make her scream because it's gonna like bust my eardrums every time she does it.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, that I mean that was just another part of it. You don't want him, and whenever he like says something that might be the wrong thing or might set her off, you kind of get a little, you kind of grit your teeth a little bit, like, oh, is she about to freak out at him? And
yeah.
just like the anticipation of these moments is like almost just as scary as the actual horror in the movie.
Well, and I think you hit the nail right on the head there about like stuff is happening off screen that we're not being shown, but we know that something bad is happening off screen. And one of the sequences that I think of with that is I guess it's when he goes to work and he's like kind of peeling the duct tape off the door, and she stands right there and she's just smiling at him like as she's waiting for him to come back. And you know that whole time that he's at work that she's just standing there, and when he comes back that she's just going to be in an awful state, and you don't really kind of know to what extent that's going to be, but it's that whole time that he's at work and he's talking to his other coworker. And I don't know if that's the moment when he eats the cat sandwich or not,
It
but
is.
I think it is.
I think that it
Yeah.
is. But even while that is all happening, it's still in the back of your head of like, oh, she's just standing there waiting for him to come back, and she's gonna freak out and probably be a mess whenever he does. Which is I think something that's really hard to do. And the fact that he does it so well in his first feature is just really, really, really exciting.
Yeah.
I think back to Trey's point with the room scene, it's the way that he can build tension. And I think I was expecting, like in that scene, I don't remember exactly what he was saying to Nikki, but I'm like, she's about to charge him or like something. I think I was expecting a lot more, but
Yeah.
then she just starts screaming, which is honestly was more terrifying to me because, like Trey said, it was so loud
Yeah.
and aggressive. And then 1 second later, she snaps back to being normal. And
Yeah.
her
And then
snapping back to normal is even creepier because he's sitting there like, you just screamed at me and now you're cuddling with me in bed.
yeah, and the way that she just like curls right up next to him and just like falls asleep immediately, and he's just kind of laying there like, what on earth is going
Yeah.
on? And which gets into that, like, again, I didn't know going into this. I knew the short film stuff, but I didn't realize he had such a background in comedy, because there are so many moments in this that even though they're scary, like you are laughing quite a bit throughout a lot of these moments, which is, I think it's a tough thing to balance that. And it's just so interesting to me that these young horror voices are like, same thing with Zach Kreger, like a guy that we all think has a long runway in front of him. His background originally was in comedy, and it's so interesting. You think about Jordan Peele and where he came from and how he went from comedy to horror, and how much of that is intertwined that I don't think that we think about a lot of times.
I think the funniest moment to me was that car scene with, I guess he was talking to Curry on the phone, but he's trying to cancel this wish and he goes, "Oh, so do you want to cancel the wish?" She's like, "Yeah, I want to alter it." "Oh, yeah, we can't do that." And it's like the entire time we were expecting him to be able to cancel it and he's like, "Yeah, no."
Yeah.
But I think it's showing that comedy works with horror and it's kind of essential because it kinda, like, threads the needle perfectly where I'm uneasy this moment, and then you make it lighthearted no, not lighthearted, but you make me laugh, and then the next second I'm terrified again. It just kinda, like, plays with your emotions, and your heart rate goes up and down, up and down. It's perfect.
But it does that heart rate up and down thing in a way that I appreciate as somebody that doesn't like the, like, 1,500 jump scares in a movie, because I feel like all of the moments that we get like that in this movie are well earned. Like, there's none of them that are cheap in any way, shape, or form. Even probably the biggest jump scare of the movie when you're towards the end of the film when he's sitting in the car with his coworker and she runs and bashes her head through the window. Like when that happens, you know that she's going to show up. Like it's not like it's a complete surprise that she comes out of nowhere. You know that that's going to happen. Obviously, you don't know in what way, that you don't know that she's going to bash her head through. I kind of just thought that she was just going to like slowly pop up like next to the car or something.
Yeah.
But
Or you'd like
um
see her in the distance, like running towards the car or something for a few
yeah,
seconds.
yeah. Yeah,
But
sort
yeah.
of like a weapon situation when they're in the car and Amy Madigan just sort of like floats out of the house for the first time. It just
Yeah.
they all feel well earned to me, and just none of it feels cheap, which is something that I appreciate about this movie compared to most horror movies.
Which I don't know if it was on the podcast you listened to, but he kind of talked about the jump scares, which I don't even know if I consider that a jump scare. I don't know if there was a jump scare in this movie. I could be completely wrong there, but it all just felt like it was just kind of happening. And he talks about that in this interview I saw where he's like, I watch all these horror movies and you know there's a jump scare coming, but the only thing it does is blare music in your ear, the sound effects.
Mhm.
That's what really makes a jump scare. And like in that car scene, there's no she screams a little bit, but it's not like some giant noise was there to make me jump at my seat. It was just more natural, I guess. And I think that's the way he was wanting it to be.
I think the big
One
one that I'm thinking of in addition to that is I think the very beginning when they're laying in bed together, there is a
Yeah.
moment where she just like screams, and that to
Uh,
me is a jump scare.
I kind
Because
of forgot about
I
that.
that was it's like the first time that she, other than when she's coming into the house, that she's acting kind of weird. It's the first time that you know like something really is going on wrong, and after that, you're kind of not as on edge because you know that anything like that is sort of fair ball game. But to me, that was the first time. I don't know if that's what you were going to say too, Trey.
No, yeah, I was exactly gonna say that exact scene. Yeah, because you really didn't know like the rules of like you hadn't seen her freak out yet at that point, and so you didn't even know that was something that was going to be in this movie. And when I think the music is like very intimate and slow, and then all of a sudden she just flips backwards and starts screaming, and yeah, that one really gets you to jump. But yeah, I mean, all the other like quote unquote jump scares are pretty telegraphed, especially that car one. Just the way they're shooting it, you can tell like so much of the window you can see outside that you can tell
Yeah.
she's gonna come up to one of those windows at some point in the
Right.
scene.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, you don't necessarily know what she's going to do, but you can tell that there's something kind of brewing from. And I did not expect her to just completely start bashing the other girl's head in. That
No,
was quite a surprise. But
yeah,
so we talked a little earlier about you kind of alluded to the ending a little bit, Fugi, and I do want to talk a little bit about that because um, I think one of the things for me that I walked away from this being most impressed with was how mean-spirited it felt in a lot of ways. Like, I think the fact that it doesn't have any sympathy at all for Bear, and it really, from the beginning to the end, like, it kind of just paints him as, like, a complete loser and coward. Like, even up to the end when he finally gets to the point where he realizes that he's gonna have to kill himself at the end, it never gives him an out, even up, and I think a lesser movie at the end of it would have made him realize at the end that he had made a mistake and have some sort of reckoning or something like that. But even up till the end, whenever he takes the like he can't shoot himself, he's scared to do that, and then he finally takes these pills. And even up until the very end, like he's trying to make himself throw up because he regrets what he's doing. And like he's a coward from the beginning of the movie because he won't even ask her out and he's scared and all those things. And that kind of follows him all the way through, which I know people may say like, well, that's not a character arc, but in a lot of ways it is because like he doesn't get the redemption that people may think he deserves that he ultimately doesn't, if that makes sense.
I saw that
yeah,
that originally wasn't in the script for him to,
Yeah.
like, gag himself, and
Yeah, I
I
saw
think
that
it
too.
was I love that he did that because I was kinda watching, and as he was, putting the pills down his throat, I was kinda like, "Oh, that kinda sucks," but then he did that, and I was like, "Oh, this is great," because you didn't redeem him. Not
Right.
everyone needs redeemed in movies nowadays, and
Yeah.
a lot of people think, it always not really, it has to be a happy ending, but, like, not everyone needs redeemed, and that was amazing. And then what follows after that was kind of even funnier, where she makes the wish to make him obsessed with her, and then he just dies because he couldn't stop it.
Yeah, I was actually I'm kind of embarrassed to admit this, but I actually completely missed her doing the wish. Like, I don't know what I thought happened originally, but I mean, obviously he's trying to make himself throw up and then he stops, but I don't know, something I must have, like, just missed the audio of her doing the wish, and then, he walks out and, like, overdoses, but it was actually afterwards that I, read online and found out that was what happened. But yeah, I completely missed that in the theater. So maybe there were other people that missed that also in the
I
theater. So
I didn't catch that. I'm
okay,
hearing about this
Oh,
for the first time. Yeah,
okay,
I
well there you
completely
go.
missed that. Yeah.
Yeah, you can hear her do like breaking
yeah,
her own
it's the
One Wish Willow.
jingle,
Yeah, so when he's about to make himself throw up and stop himself from killing himself because I guess he wants to live on with her like this. Um, then that's when she breaks the wish, and now he's obsessed with her. So he just walks out. But yeah, I guess other people must have missed that too if both of us did. So
Yeah, I think I did not catch that. But then that just the final shot of her waking up and just being surrounded by really the carnage of the situation, and you see the real version of her kind of sitting there and taking it all in. I felt like was a very 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 effective way to end the movie, and it ends it on, again, a much more dour note than I think a lot of movies are ever okay with ending on, because I think a lot of movies would have just wanted to tie a better bow around her story and make it feel like, oh, she's happy, like she's like smiling or whatever because she made it through all this. But that's not the case at all, because she's experienced something horrific and she's gonna live with that for the rest of time. But you don't have to tell us that. It just showed us what her state was whenever she came out of that.
which I think is very similar to Weapons and the ending of that. It was like, yes, the kids were found, but also we know the kids aren't normal after that.
Mm,
Like they weren't talking for however long. And it's like, yes, we resolve the problem. They go back to semi normal, but they're also going to be dealing with that the rest of their lives, probably.
yeah.
yeah, I also read that they actually filmed two endings. So I
Yeah,
don't know if
I
you.
read this too, yeah.
So originally Curry said the ending was going to be Nikki shooting herself at the end. I don't know if that would have been before she turned back or after. Um, because but Nikki before she turned back, I think Bearhead was like dying and she was maybe thinking about shooting herself already. But the studios wanted them to film an ending where Nikki lives at the end. But Curry actually ended up going with that one where she lives because he said, and I think I agree, that ending is even more dark than her having killed herself at the end because now
Yeah,
she has to live with, you know, killing her friends and everything else that she's done.
right.
Um, and she's just screaming for 3 minutes as the credits roll, which is kind of insane. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, there was a moment too where I thought that it potentially was gonna end with, like, before it goes to that kind of final stretch of where he goes into the bathroom and all that kinda stuff, they're just kinda, like, on the couch, like, laying together, and I think her head is on, like, his shoulder. I kinda thought there was a chance that it was just gonna end right there, and it was just gonna kinda be, like, just the bleakness of them both being stuck in this situation. But then I like the fact that it takes it that extra step. Something
Mhm.
that I wanted to ask you all about, I don't know if you've seen this or not, but the marketing that they've done with this movie is very interesting. I don't know if you've seen this or not, but Focus actually released the clip of him going into the bathroom with the gun as, like, you know how they'll release, like, oh, a new clip from whatever movie just came out. That was a clip that they decided to release on the weekend that the movie is coming out. What's with that, Fugi?
I think I saw someone like subtweet this as like out of context, this really doesn't tell us anything. But in context, this is like, I mean, this is the ending.
Yeah,
So I got the notification about this posted before I saw it. Thankfully, I didn't watch it. But like, even if I would have, like, I wouldn't have known what point. I mean, horror movies, so much stuff happens that could have been in the middle of the movie, and I would have never known.
yeah, I guess.
But it would have sucked to see that and then see that, oh, this is the ending. So
Yeah.
that will definitely suck. I don't know why are we releasing clips on Thursday when the movie's already out? I feel like we should have done our
Yeah,
root of our marketing before that.
yeah. I saw the trailer a few months ago, I think, but when I saw the clips were being released, I avoided all of those because I
Yeah.
figured they'd be some kind of spoilers. And actually, the trailer doesn't even really show the extent to which, I mean, you obviously get the feeling that she is like the villain and she's like obsessed over him somehow, but the trailer doesn't even really show the extent to which she's, going insane and screaming and not taking care of herself, just like standing there while he's at work and stuff like that. So that was a big surprise for me, having just seen the trailer and nothing else about it.
Yeah, I don't even know that I even watched a whole trailer. A lot of times when a trailer for a movie comes out like that, I'll like watch the first essentially I'll watch enough to where I'm like, okay, I'm gonna see this. Like I don't need to see anymore. And most of the time it's like the first like 10 seconds. And so I don't even know that I don't even know how much I obviously knew what the log line was, but I don't know how much I had seen from a trailer perspective. And maybe the thought process behind putting that clip out there is they're they're essentially playing with house money at this point. I don't know if you all have followed the financial side of this. I don't know how much Focus acquired this movie for because there was sort of a bidding war that broke out after Toronto Film Festival premiere between A24 Neon and Focus, but it's pretty widely reported that this movie cost less than $700,000 to make, and it is going to make about $16 million in the opening weekend. So even if Focus paid a couple $1 million for this movie, like it's going to be in the green immediately after a few days, which is just quite impressive for somebody's feature film debut.
And it just shows that he's not going anywhere. So if there was ever a doubt that, maybe he wouldn't be able to make as many horror movies because it didn't do well financially, I think that shuts down those rumors. Have you heard of the next one he's doing? Did you see
Yeah,
the
and yeah, you alluded to you said you
Yeah.
don't know it's done. It's
I
shot.
I I just saw that, yeah.
It's ready to go. So the next one is called Anything But Ghosts. And it follows two con artists whose fake ghost hunting business spirals out of control after encountering a real dark entity. It's going to be starring Aaron Paul and Bryce Dallas Howard, so he's going to get to work with some real Hollywood actors, but this one is going to actually star Curry Barker and his friend who plays Ian in Obsession, Cooper Tomlinson, as the main people. It's getting put out there a lot that Aaron Paul and Bryce Dallas Howard are in there. They're not, they're just supporting characters. The main characters are going to be Cooper and his friend Ian. So, and he talked
Mm.
about that in his interview on The Big Picture a little bit about how sort of that decision of, because apparently the they were okay with him starring in Obsession because that was a question at one point of would he play the bear character, and he even said whenever he was writing the script he was kind of writing it in his voice, and he made the choice at one point to not put himself into that shoes. So it'll be interesting to see going forward kind of how he decides to handle starring versus not starring in these parts. But I can't wait. I don't know if that means that this new movie, Anything But Ghosts, is that going to be a fall festival movie this year? Maybe it'll premiere at TIFF again, as like Obsession did. I don't, jury remains out on that, but the fact that we already have one in the can is super exciting.
The one thing that worries me, and this is completely different than that, but the fact that he already has one filmed is giving me like Osgood Perkins vibes, where he did Long Legs, then instantly had another one in his like he already had the what is it, Keeper filmed and the Monkey,
Yeah.
and then he releases those, and those don't live up to the hype as much. But I think this will be different.
Are you guys sure this is filmed already? It says principal photography wrapped on April 11th,
Yeah.
2026.
Yeah. That means
Okay.
it's done. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, they still, it's not like done and finished editing and everything, but like they finished shooting it, I guess is what I'm alluding to.
Okay.
I think,
Also,
No,
unless
it
I'm,
on discussing film, it said Curry Barker has already finished filming his next horror film.
yeah.
So I
okay.
would trust that.
I think I had a misunderstanding of what principal photography meant. So never mind. Just ignore me.
It's also worth noting that Violet McGraw is in the new one, which
Oh, I saw that name, but that didn't mean anything to
she's
me.
the girl in the Black Phone movies, the sister.
Oh,
which
interesting.
she was great in the first one. This will be a bounce back for her because I don't think she was that great in the
No,
second one.
I'm with you on that. And obviously we haven't mentioned it yet, but we know that he's been tapped to write and direct the new Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie from, I think it's A24. That's attached to that. And he said in the press rounds he's kind of annoyed that he's already getting so much attention because he hasn't even started writing it yet. So I think it's going to be a little while before we get that. But man, it's just exciting to have a new young voice that is someone to get excited about in the horror space, and you have the feeling that we'll see what the future movies entail, but you just have a feeling that we're gonna be talking about his movies for the next couple of decades, which I think is a fun because he's what, like, he's 26 maybe.
Yeah, I think somebody said mid-20s for his age. So yeah, he's 26.
Yeah. So I know in a few weeks, in 2 weeks actually, we're going to, around the release of the Backrooms, we're going to talk about some of our most exciting directors under the age of 30. I know this is only just one film for him, but I don't know how you can not consider him kind of in the running for a list like that after this debut. Also, and I meant to text you all about this. I don't know why I thought this was a Neon movie. I was shocked whenever I walked into theaters and saw that it was a Focus feature kind of Blumhouse movie. I thought for sure it was Neon. I'm not sure why I thought that though.
Obviously, I'd seen that this was getting insane reviews. If I hadn't been on Letterboxd and I would have went to the theater and saw Blumhouse was attached, I would have instantly gotten scared. Like that would have it kind of did already because they've kind of been putting out some trash as of late.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of glad it's attached to it because maybe we'll hit a new stride and they'll be back on top because I mean they have insane IP and have produced and created amazing stuff. But
Is the new movie gonna be a horror movie or is it more of a comedy?
I mean, I would assume from the tagline that this is a horror. I mean, it says spirals out of control after encountering a real dark entity.
Yeah.
I could also definitely see it being the same way as this. There was kind of a mixture of comedy and horror. I would assume he's gonna do that in all of his movies, would be my guess. Maybe not the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but we'll see.
I think that it's interesting too because I did hear that which maybe doesn't get back to your point of maybe we should be a little bit more worried about this one. This is a script that he and his friend wrote a long time ago. So this is not like he wrote Obsession and then he wrote this immediately after. This is something that they wanted to shoot for a long time. They were just didn't have enough money, obviously, to make it happen. So I think though what gives me a little bit more pause about that is we just have more of a track record with him in the sense that
Yeah.
I haven't seen all of his YouTube stuff, but from what I've seen and what other people have said about the other stuff, it seems like he's been doing this for a really long time. And man, those TikToks now that they're popping up, they are the sketch comedy stuff. Trey, I don't know if you've seen any of it, but they are hilarious.
Yeah, I haven't seen as much of it. I actually saw one last night that was really funny. I think it was an older one, but yeah, there's so much of their stuff that's really funny. I think they mainly do that on their YouTube actually, and then the short horror stuff is kind of every now and then.
Mm.
But yeah, I mean, they have a ton of experience, you know, writing and filming these shorts and short films. So yeah, I'm sure this new movie is going to be good. I'm definitely going to go ahead and get in the front row for it. I'm ready.
Yeah. So, what do you all think at this point, being the horror aficionados that you are? Do you think that we'll see a better horror movie than this for the rest of the year? Is there anything coming down the pike that you think maybe could? I know we're 2 weeks away from Backroom, so that's sort of the big question mark at the moment of what that will be like. But are you happy if we get to the end of the year and you say this is the best horror movie I saw for the year, or how are you all feeling about the state of horror?
Trey, you
Yeah,
wanna
I actually made a list. I think after this movie, for some reason, it compelled me to make a list of my top 10 horror movies on Letterboxd, and Obsession was one of the first ones I thought of to add. So
Top 10
this
of
is
all
a
top 10 of all time. Is that what you're
horror
saying?
movie of all time. Yeah,
Oh,
top 10
wow.
of all time.
Nice.
So
Okay.
yeah, I would be happy if this ends the year as the best horror movie. I think the only one that has a chance of passing it is Backrooms. There seems to be a lot of excitement for that, but I don't know. If for some reason, it's hard for me to imagine it being better than this. But I mean, I'm ready. If it is, then fair enough.
Yeah,
If
we'll
we
potentially be running back the same conversation of exciting new young filmmaker in the horror space
Yeah.
2 weeks from now.
if we see something better than this, a horror movie, then we're seeing like the best of the decade. Or that, I mean, I don't think I've ever experienced a movie where I see it and I've wanted to sit, rate again, and watch it again. I've honestly been like fighting the urge to go back to the theater and see this like again and again. But I think the longer I wait, the better it's going to play on rewatch.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to hold out to. I have not rated it yet because I kind of waited. It's the same way I felt with Sinners. I saw Sinners the first time, and it's like it was so great that I wanted to see it a second time before I even put thoughts down on a piece of paper or anything.
Mhm.
So I might do that here, but a 5 star is not off the table for me. I
Oh,
I like
wow.
I was just I mean the fast I've been thinking the past 2 days is what is
Wow.
holding this back. Like I genuinely don't know what's not perfect about this movie. So that's high praise, but obviously a lot of people are agreeing with me with a 4.2 average on Letterbox, and it just keeps going up, which is crazy. I did not when I drafted this number one, I expected to stay at a 4, but it's somehow rising. So
I'm kind of
Yeah, well,
surprised it's that high on Letterbox. Like, I mean, obviously, I agree. I gave it a 4.5, but in my mind, these kinds of movies are like mid to high 3 usually. Like, what do you think is raising it to
well, I think the thing that you
4.2?
I think the thing you have to think about is that right now the only people that are seeing it are the people that are the real heads that are going out to see it opening weekend or have seen it early or
Yeah,
have seen it as a festival. I think with the horror stuff as time goes on, it especially after this weekend with the buzz it's going to get, it's going to draw more people that maybe aren't as deep in the genre as you guys are, and maybe girlfriends that get pulled along to go see it on a second weekend because their boyfriend wants to see it, or whoever, a boyfriend that doesn't want to see it that a girlfriend wants to see it, however that plays out. And I think those are the people that end up like over time pulling it down a
yeah.
little bit. It'll be interesting to see where it settles out.
which I think the same thing happened with Weapons because I'm looking at Weapons. I didn't realize Weapons was a 3.6. I thought that was like a 3.9 or 4. And I'm pretty sure it was.
3.6.
That's what I'm saying. It has fallen a lot.
Wow.
So
That's
I
crazy.
think that proves
I
your
think it was a
point.
4 at one point.
That's why, yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's been on streaming for a while now. The Oscars probably got so many people to watch this that don't even like horror, and
Yeah,
they just
probably.
tanked it.
Yeah.
No.
So we'll see. I mean, we'll see where it settles out. I will say we have a committee investigating Fugi if he's just going to rate all of the movies that he drafted in his box office draft as a 5 star to pull up the
Mm.
average a little bit. We've got our eyes on it. We're monitoring the situation. We'll reconvene if need be on that. How to check in on that? How many movies have we had released so far that have been a part of?
So it's kind of funny how it lined up, actually. Both of my movies, Hokum and Devil Wears Prada 2, were released like the first weekend in May, I think. And then Fugi has Obsession and Is God Is.
Yeah.
So both of his were this weekend. And then Aaron, you have Backrooms and Tuner, which I think they're the same weekend too, aren't they?
Yeah, I
Both of
think
those?
Tuner may be next weekend limited, but yeah, I think they're both the
Okay.
last weekend. Yeah.
And then I have Passenger, which is also going to be later this May. It was one of my wild cards.
Oh, you have three.
Um,
You have three from May.
Yeah, one of my wild cards is Passenger. And also Pressure. Isn't that a May? I have that also.
It is. Yeah. So you have
So
four
I have
May.
four Mays, I guess. But yeah, right now Fugi's in the big lead because Devil Wears Prada 2 kind of let me down letterboxd wise. And
What did
Fugi's
it?
at like a 4 average right now for his two.
Yeah. Because
What
Is God
did?
Is doing really well too.
Yeah, it's really high.
What did Devil Wears Prada 2 land at? Or
I
where
saw
it
it
is
was
at the moment?
like mid to low 3, I think, is what I
Okay.
remember.
Yeah, it's at a
Oh,
It's at a 3.3.
Yeah, and I think Hokum is maybe a little higher than that, but not much. So I'm like mid 3s
but
at the
also
moment.
those. I mean, I've got my number one pick.
Yeah, yeah.
Your number one, it was The Invite, right?
Yeah, I have the invite next month. So
that's, I mean, that already has like a 4.1. So
I can't wait for all the people hating on the Odyssey to give it a half star just because of casting choices and pull down the letterbox curve because I used my number one pick on that. So that's going to be very great for me.
Should have seen that coming.
That would be really funny if it just like tanked and you debated not drafting it.
Yeah, it would be funny if it just ends up at like a 2.5 or something. Like it would have to be really bad for that to happen. But we'll see. I have faith in I don't know what Backrooms is going to be interesting, but I feel like the early stuff from Tuner looks good. I know you got a chance to see Tuner, Trey.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about it too much, probably.
Yeah.
I did see an early thing of Tuner and thumbs up. I'll just say that.
I'm excited to check that one out over the coming weeks. Well, we will be back next week. Not entirely sure what we're doing next week. Probably something Star Wars related. Next week is the big release is the Mandalorian and Grogu, which I know is a movie that has everyone on this podcast absolutely jazzed to see it. Fugi's going to chime in here and say that he's gotten more excited as time goes on.
I'm going to say that the reviews actually haven't been terrible. I'm not saying
no one's
they're
got
good.
to see this other than influencers. No real people have gotten to see this.
And there's influencers that have seen it that I do actually appreciate their input and have said it is not bad. They're not saying it's great. I'm thinking if I come out of this and give it a 3-star, this is a win. Like that's the way I'm feeling.
All right.
I don't think it's going to be good.
Well, if you would have drafted it in your box office draft, you would have it as a 5. So
no.
For those of us that aren't like up to date on modern Star Wars, do you have to have watched all of Mandalorian up to this point to appreciate it? Do you think? I mean, maybe you don't know, but
people have been saying that you don't have to see any of the Mandalorian to understand it.
Okay.
I've seen it's a perfect like bridge for new people and people that have seen it. I'm not going to watch season 3. I haven't seen season 3, and I would assume I'm going to understand everything that's happening. So
okay.
I think you just need to understand that there is Mandalorian and there's Baby Yoda, and that's about it.
All right.
So we will see you back here next week for whatever entails our opinions of Mandalorian and Grogu, whether they be my not loving it or Fugi's 5-star review. Jury will be out on that one. Until next time, hope you all watch a lot of great films. We'll see you next time.